Hello and welcome to this new episode hosted by the Policy Center for the New South. Today I am happy to be joined by Amal El Ouassif. She's a senior international relations specialist and we're going to talk about African migration trends to watch in 2024. Dr. Amal, thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for the invitation.
As you know, migration is profoundly shaped by some factors including climate change, political instability, and the economic pressures. What are, according to you, the primary factors that are shaping or driving migration trends within Africa and out of Africa?
Well, still in 2024, what we could say is that economic conditions are still to be listed on the top reasons behind migration, but we have recently been witnessing really different, let's say, different forms of migration that are increasingly mixed migration, motivated by a set of factors that that you have mentioned earlier, ranging from economic conditions, from climate change as well, and for also the willingness within citizens of African countries to enhance their living conditions, whether it be when it comes to what is available for them and their families in terms of infrastructures, institutions, education, etc. So it is really complicated now to state that only economic conditions or climate change or education are behind these flows of migration. And with this regard, I would like to direct you, for the case of Morocco, to the report of the HCP, which is the institution that works on the statistics in Morocco, that has conducted two very interesting, let's say, researches both on internal migration dynamics in Morocco, but also another research on forced displacement and the people from other countries living in Morocco. And what was interesting in this case is that really mixed migration is paving its way among the motivations of Moroccans going abroad. As I have mentioned earlier, economic conditions remain on the top of the motivations that drive Moroccans to go abroad, and also that drive other citizens of other African countries to come and settle in Morocco. But there are increasing categories that go to European countries specifically for the sake of education, for looking for better opportunities, economic and social opportunities, but also there is an increase in feminization of migration. So we do see that more and more women are actually also taking the path of migration. Before, they used to be more let's say second actors of migration. They accompany their husbands or partners for this path, but now they're also taking migration for their own, for the sake of their economic and social stability, and also for their independence. So I think that that's really something to mention in this regard. And I would also like to mention a study that we have published recently jointly with the Atlantic Council, and that was co-written with another author. Her name is Constance Newman, and we actually worked on a very interesting comparison between the Moroccan migrants living in France and Spain, and the Nigerians who are migrating to the US and the UK. And it was really interesting to see that there are similarities in terms of the motivations of migration, but they have different paths once they get into the destination countries.
And I want to talk with you about the challenges that migrants are facing once they leave their countries. What are the primary challenges they face when they are leaving their home countries?
Well, thank you for this question, because it also serves as a transition to the report that I mentioned, that is available both on the websites of the Policy Center for the New South and the website of the Atlantic Council. What was interesting to see is that the challenges, they could be really different even within the communities of migrants themselves. For instance, when you look at the earlier generations of migrants, you could witness that accessing to the labor market could be challenging, particularly in times of crisis. There was this interesting study that was conducted by I think it was a labor agency in France with in partnership with other institutions, and they found out that the same resume with the same competencies, when you change the name and you have a name that has an Arabic or Maghrebi origin, then your chances to be called for an interview are really lowered by this by this specific indication. Again, it's not the case for all migrants, for the case of Moroccans, but we can say that there are a lot of challenges, including access to the labor market and also access to basic services like housing. It is forbidden by the French law to discriminate people when they are trying to access the housing services based on their nationalities or on their to the nationality they belong to. But they witnessed that really on the field there are this kind of discriminations, that the landlords would prefer to just to rent their houses to French people or to other European citizens rather than lending it to a person from a migratory background. So these kind of issues, they do persist, but again, as I mentioned, there are different circumstances when it comes also to the level of education. If you are well educated, if you were proposed the French nationality, for instance, then the conditions could be different for you in comparison to a merely a migrant person that arrived newly in France. It could be really difficult and challenging to get access to housing and to labor opportunities. So I would say that these two really aspects are very crucial, and they were mentioned in details in the report that I have spoken about. And also some of the things that are worth to be mentioned is that it really depends also on the country. So if you are in France, it could be very different from the case in the US, for instance, because the culture is different. It depends on the model of integration that the hosting country is adopting. If it's what we call as an integration model that allows for the migrant to express their differences while still having the priority of actually respecting the laws and the culture of the hosting country, or if you are in a really narrow model of integration where you have to sort of give up on your own cultural identity in order to fit into the hosting country. So there are a set of things that differ from each context.
Okay, so I understand from what you were saying that there are some range of factors that contribute to the challenges that are facing migrants, and they are very connected. We can say it's the access to the job market, it's also social acceptance, but also do you think that the rise of the extreme right movement could exacerbate these challenges like by the years to come?
I definitely think it's the case, and for that sake, I mean, one of the biggest arguments that were given by these extreme right parties was actually the fact that migrants could be a threat to the host countries, and it could even be that it's a very interesting argument for these politicians arguing for the necessity to control the flow of migrants, and we've seen what happened in France recently with the suggested law on migration. But I think what is really concerning is that the rise of these political parties is actually also a reflection of, or could be a reflection of how the population feels towards migrants. And I wanted to mention one interesting finding that was published by OECD years ago. That was actually that in the times of crisis, and they based the research on the crisis of 2008, that governments they tend to be more inward looking, so they intend to first serve the needs of their citizens before trying to integrate or trying to offer the opportunities and possibilities for people who could be perceived that they're not really active, participants in the society. So all this leads to the spread of this kind of ideas that could be that could carry really a lot of challenges and difficulties for the hosting countries themselves, but also for the migrants who are facing this kind of discrimination that could really go from, as I told you, access to the labor market and to housing to other things that are more really problematic.
Thank you very much. What are the impacts of migration on both origin and destination countries within Africa?
Well, that could be really, there could be different answers to this question, but in a very classical way, what would be the ideal scheme for the descendant countries is to be able to have remittances from the people who are abroad, which would contribute to the development of the country, and ideally also have a transfer of knowledge from these migrants who go and work and can benefit their home countries. But when we look in the reality, things could be really different and challenging in the ground, in the sense that it depends on the profiles of migrants as well. For instance, for Moroccans, they used for generations to be really filling the low-skilled, jobs in the labor market, which wouldn't be able to generate this kind of remittances that could benefit Morocco or benefit its development. But recently, with the waves of students who go to Europe and who have better jobs, I think that the perspectives for remittances is really interesting, and it has been really increasing throughout the last years. But for the destination countries, I think that most of migrants are very active in the labor market, and this follows really the supply and demand, dynamics of the labor market. So it allows for these countries that are most of the time aging countries as well to fill the gap in the labor market. So they benefit from this labor force that is offered by the migrants, and it also allows for the countries that have this kind of like melting pot culture to actually develop also a diverse culture, like the case in Canada or in the US, and they really benefit from different expertise of migrants. And in this regard, it is interesting to mention the case of the brain drain, because it has been a topic that is understudied. Whenever we hear debates about migration, most of the time we're speaking about irregular migration and how people are flooding Europe or other Western countries with waves of migrants. But the truth is that the brain drain thing is that there is a brain gain from the receiving country, but then a brain loss from the sending country. And the case of doctors and nurses and pretty much all the staff that is working in the medical sector is very critical. We've witnessed this in the context of the COVID-19 crisis, and I think that we will be witnessing more of this kind of trends coming and really persisting, because for a country to be able to have a return on investment when it comes to really training doctors and these critical sectors, it has to have a high level of remittances in order to cover the costs that were spent on the people who were trained. And very few countries, if barely any, could actually reach this point of return on investment. So I think that these kind of questions would need really a lot of attention to be addressed before the sending countries are really faced with structural crisis when it comes to sensitive sectors.
Thank you, Amal, for these valuable insights. Dear audience, thank you very much for following us today, and I give you a stay tuned for more episodes brought to you by the Policy Center for the New South. Thank you very much.